guys. Welcome back to Real Talk with Renisha. Today, my guest is Mr. Steve Alexander Jr. And Steve is a licensed psychotherapist hailing all the way from New York, New York. Steve is the owner and founder of nywellness.com. He's an author and writer who has been featured in the New York Times, Psychology Today, psychonet.com, and the Huffington Puff. Actually, Huffington Post. Steve, welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very rare that I get to actually interview another therapist. So I am really excited for this particular segment because I know we're going to do a little bit of mental health talking as well, but we're also going to do some real talk, which is why we're here. So tell us a little bit about what you specialize in, Steve.
Yeah. So thank you so much once again for having me here. In terms of what I specialize in, I really specialize in depression, anxiety, and trauma. And I have a focus on Black men, but the youngest person in my practice is about 9 years old, and the oldest is about 60 something. So I really don't close the doors on people unless they present with something that I really feel like I can't help with.
That's interesting because I find that, most of us in this field, myself included, my population is completely adults. And that's anywhere from like 18 to 60 plus, still young in age. But I've never really wanted to work with children. And I'm not sure why. I just felt like it just took something different to work with that population. So what made you decide I'm just going to go full range regardless of age?
No, that's such a good question. And it's interesting because I remember when I started out in what they call Article 32 outpatient mental health clinics, they
As
would give me these young Black boys. And I'd be like, well, why are they sending them all to me? Yeah, I'm a Black male or whatever, but what's going on here? And then after a while, when I started talking to the clinicians, I realized, and doing the work, I realized how hard it is because children don't really have much autonomy in life, right? So most of the decisions is made through parents. So you're not only working with the child, you're working with the parent as well. So imagine if, I don't know, in private practice, let me just throw out something random. If your client comes in, they're above 18, you don't have to sign anything. It's really just about them. But with the client, you have to get their assent, right? So the child's assent and then the parents' consent. It's kind of like you're going through second people, then the parents get involved and you're doing therapy for them. So it's very challenging. And I think that's why a lot of people stay away from it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's why I probably stayed away from it myself. This sounds very challenging. Yes. Not that I want the easy way out, but I feel like for me specifically, I work my best with like young adults. Young adults are my niche and I love them and they love me and we get along well. So I can't even imagine, like you said, going through the parents and you're giving them therapy as well.
Yeah.
They are learning while their child is learning. So very interested and appreciate that you have that wide spectrum. We will talk a little bit about you being a Black male therapist because I think that's such a very special niche as well. We don't have that many out there, so we will get back to that a little bit later in the show. But right now, I want to talk a little bit about you being a published author. I didn't even ask you what the name of your book was, so I'm sure you'll let us know. And your writing in particular, what do you enjoy most about writing? What does that do for you?
Oh, yes. I'll tell you the books first. One was called Speak, A Simple Guide to Public Speaking, because before I was a therapist, I used to be a public speaking coach, if you will. So I would go
Awesome.
training surgeons and all this stuff, bedside manner, and I wrote a book based on that. And another one's called Sean's Show and Tell Tale, which is just public speaking, but for children. But to answer your question, the reason why I write like for psychotherapy.net and Psychology Today is that I don't know. I mean, I guess from when I was very young, my aunt gave me this like a journal. And long story short, what happened is I realized that through writing, I could kind of escape my reality. So when you're writing, you can be anybody you want. And that's how I kind of developed my identity. I'm going to stop because I could end up talking forever. But long story short, I realized that I could form my identity. I could kind of explore things and just challenge. I love when I have topics. Look, I'm about to go off on a rant. But long story short, I love when there's a topic and I get to debate both sides. It helps me feel more sharp. So that's the reason why I like writing.
Is awesome. Just the fact that you said, as a child, you journaled, because that is
Mm.
something that a lot of us don't really do. And I've probably journaled from, gosh, early teens and still do to this day, actually. You know what I'm saying? So you do get to escape your reality. But I'm so fascinated when it comes to public speaking, and you've written books on that, because it's still something that I struggle with even today. I'm sitting here and I still struggle with public speaking. And I think that is a book that is absolutely necessary, because a lot of us in our career, we have to. There's no bypassing public speaking. And, we do the best we can, but it would be great to have, a step-by-step guide of how to make yourself a little bit more comfortable in that space.
Right.
So we'll definitely have that in the description for our viewers to pick that up. And I think I'm going to read that as well. That sounds amazing.
Okay.
Writer and author. Very, very nice. Wonderful. Your bio also says that you are the founder and creator of an organization called Clinical Think Tank. And it's a group for gang affiliated children. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that entails and what brought about this group? It sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so what I noticed is when I went to school, I went to Teachers College, Columbia in the city, and there was a clinical psychologist who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to do this research project. Do you have time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got time, of course." So what happened was he said, "We're trying to kind of meet the needs of an underserved population." I'm like, "What kind of population is that?" Then he said gangs, and I'm like, "Whoa, I'm very interested in that. From my own upbringing and being around certain things, I'm like, this is so cool." And what we found was that if you wanted to get clinical service for sex offenders or people who long-term are in prison, they have a lot of published stuff, and here's the manual on how to treat them. But when it came to gangs, you don't have that at all. So part of me is very industrious, like there's a lot of stuff I do, even outside of being a therapist. So I'm like, whoa, this is an uncharted area. It's an area I really like, and I feel like I can help to make a difference. So when I would work in certain clinicals, once again, these Article 32 clinics or whatever, outpatient mental health, they would say, we don't really treat gang members. So a lot of these places will turn them away. So there's an area I can specialize in. I think it can provide a lot of value, and I just love researching it. I put out videos on this stuff, like on my YouTube channel. So that's the reason why I got into it.
Same. It's, we always think that everything that we think about on this earth, there is a group for it. There is something already made and developed for it. And when I hear you say that, it's a population that there is really nothing that's available for them. And I can't even imagine, not hard, challenging, how challenging that might be.
Yeah.
Because people look down on gang members and the children, and there's no hope, and there's just so much missing, and we look at them from the perspective of they're bad people.
Yeah.
I really believe that there is good in everyone. I really want to believe that. Maybe I'm naive, I really want to believe that there is good in everyone. And I just think just knowing that someone cares, people always want to know that someone cares, no matter how quote unquote bad they are or what they have done, they still want to know that there's people out there that still care. And I think by having such a group and forming this kind of work, they know, listen, it might be one person, one organization, but they still care about who I am as a person, as a human being. And that's rare.
And I can tell you're an excellent therapist because you're one of the first few people that can really conceptualize what's going on and the way you just described it. And you're right. Like I would have this one kid, he says, "Steve, no matter how many times I would come in and I would say nothing, or I would just, it's like pulling teeth talking to him."
Yes.
He would say, "You never left me. Every week you would call at the same time. You don't really treat me like I'm bad." And that was a 12-year-old. So I mean, no, you really captured this exactly what it is, and that's why I do it. And to your point, you're going through everything, attachment theory, you're going through stages of development, you're working with the parents, another law for all kinds of stuff. So it is challenging, and I think once again it makes me sharp and helps me even when I'm working with people who are not gang affiliated.
They're human beings.
Right.
They're human beings. They're human beings. And we, you know, as therapists, we know a little bit more of the background of why people get involved in gangs and why people fall into gangs. There's a lot of history that's so deep
Yeah.
behind why it is that they actually ended up where they ended up.
Right.
And it's a lot of attachment theory, it's a lot of neglect, it's a lot of abuse. They didn't just wake up and say, I want to go into a gang. A lot of stuff happened for them to get to where they're, you know, they have ended up. So just I applaud you. I applaud you. I don't know if you know that one of the main themes for me, even starting this podcast, was to have people on here who are giving back, who care, you know, and we have to realize that it's not just about us anymore. When we have, you know, met our goals and met our dreams, it's now time for us to give back.
Right.
So when people are giving back, it melts my heart because that's who I am. I want to give back. If I can inspire you, if I can say something to just raise and lift that person up, that's what I want to do. Because it's no
Mhm.
longer about me anymore. You know what I mean? So
Right.
you doing that, I know that you are a huge inspiration to these young gang affiliated children. You definitely are a mentor. You know, you are giving so much that you don't even know that you're giving them, or they know, but they know. And that's what's important here. Absolutely love that. Wow. Talk about making a difference.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom, the ground level difference.
Right.
Love that. Excellent work. Awesome. I would definitely love to know more about that off camera as well.
Yeah.
It's something that is it's just so inspiring. Because these are the people that we look down on. It's so inspiring. There's no hope for them. I'm like, no, there is hope for them.
Right.
So very inspired. I'm just going to go back to my next question. I'm going to skip something for right now because I know that talked a little bit about being a Black male therapist. So therapy and this profession and this field is mainly made up of women. It's, you know, talk about the gender. I remember when I was in grad school, we probably had about three males, literally about three males. I was the only person of color, of course, among others. And, you know, the way that it's made up, it's very few and far in between. And I personally probably know maybe two other male Black therapists, so far and few in between. How does it feel for you being in this profession that is, first of all, mainly a woman's field, more of a feminine profession, but being, you know, that Black male that literally would stand out anywhere you go, you know, how does that feel for you? And what does it make a difference for you to be a certain way when you're out here in the field?
You know, and I'm gonna be so honest with you on that one because I could give you a stereotypical answer. There's so many feelings that come up. You know,
Okay.
part of it feels like I'm a unicorn, right? Like, oh, so it's a great business opportunity. There's not many of me out there, so there's people looking. But it's less of that. Like I said, I do stuff outside of psychotherapy, you know, and there's other investments I do. So I don't really care too much about the money and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
On the other hand, I like that you see women in a very empowered life. Like these are women who, like yourself, you know, podcast, they got the private practice, they coach, all this kind of stuff. So it's a nice contrast to what you see, how women are portrayed in society. Like if I look at my wife, she's an assistant principal, right? And then she's done like entrepreneurial endeavors with like certain subscription boxes. It's just, it's not what you would typically think of how they like to say women are, right? So I really like that. Then on another hand, it's just kind of cool because I get to be that person that I always wanted. You know, I have two younger brothers, but I never had an older brother. And I always wanted someone that I could turn to, and he didn't even have to say anything, but just being in his presence, you know, like, all right, I'm okay now. Like I had certain experiences when I was young, when I was like 14, 15, I was robbed. And I remember my mom really comforted me throughout the whole thing. She stayed on the phone with me and I was crying the whole thing. But I always wanted like a male presence. Just he didn't have to say anything to me, just to know like, yo, bro, you're good. You know, like you're here with me now. And I always wanted that. So when you go back to the question, it's like it really feels good to provide that for someone. But then there's some awkwardness to it. You know, I'm a mixed bag, right? You see like the good and the awkwardness too, because then I start thinking, all right, one of a few men, like what does that say about me that makes you gravitate towards something like that? But I've had to embrace over time to just naturally, I'm a nurturing person, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Yeah, that's how to answer it.
Absolutely not, because we know that there is a huge market for that niche. There really is. Um, Again, there's so many right? There's a therapist on every block, pretty much. Really, we live in New York. There's a therapist literally on every corner, but there isn't a therapist of color on every corner. And you have the clients who are coming in and wanting to speak with a therapist that looks like them. And I hear it all the time. It is so hard to find a therapist of color, male or female, right? Period. It's so hard to find a therapist of color. So
Yeah.
that we get to serve this population very well because we're so far and few in between. And then having a therapist of a black male, I mean, it's even harder. It's even harder. So a lot
And
of the men that I get, the black males that do see me because I am a black female, they're like, would have preferred a black male, but nonetheless, not that they're trying to diss me in any way, right? It's just that, sometimes they do want a female perspective, depending on what they're coming in. And if there's trauma that is situated around men, a lot of men want to see a female therapist just because of that as well. So there's a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff that goes on in this mind of ours, in this brain of ours. But again, just being available and having other Black men see you in that role. Yes, we can play that role. We are fathers, we are mothers, we are brothers, we are sisters, we are grandparents, we are aunties. We play so many roles in that therapy space, and we can hold that for our clients. And there's nothing wrong with that. But very unique, very unique. I remember you said you feel like a unicorn sometimes, very, very unique, but in an amazing and a really good, fulfilling way. So that's really good. Now, what do you like most about being a therapist?
what do I like most about being a therapist? And I think I have a slight tint towards pessimism because when I see that or hear that question, I often think like, all right, what don't I like about being a therapist? But to answer your, because I could come up with some stuff of that too. What I like about being a therapist, without being long-winded, is that
Mhm.
I know that I'm one of the few people that see people for who they are. Like true, true, true. Like we know the facades of people going through life, that this is how I am, but we get to see who they truly are. And that's like, it's more than a blessing. That's like a gift. Like imagine so many people they're in relationships, their partners don't even know who they are.
Yes.
Their higher ups don't know, their parents may not even know. But with us, when you have that right therapeutic connection, like we really know who people are. Right. And that's like it's so special. I can't even put it into words.
I tell people all the time, therapy is a hidden secret. It really is. It's a hidden
Right.
secret. It really is. It really is. This is the space that it's like no other space in the world. And what's important that you said is once you find that right fit, it's absolutely amazing.
Right.
We're laughing in the therapy space. We're crying. We're just having, like, are you really having therapy here? Yes, we are. But we can be that way because we fit, Our ideal clients are mirrors to us. And
Mhm.
that's something that I realized later on in my career. The clients that I resonate the best with, they're like me. They're
Mm.
like me.
Interesting.
They've done stuff like me.
Yeah.
They've been in situations like me. And I'm like, when we speak, it's like literally I'm speaking to myself sometimes. I've had to tell myself this stuff years ago that I'm telling this person right now. You know what I mean? They
Right.
mirror us. It's to me, it's like a hidden gem. It's like a
Yes.
hidden gem. Which brings me to my next question, right? Because during our post-interview talk, I found out that Steve and I have something in common. I'm laughing because we have roots in the Caribbean, right? So specifically, I'm from the island of Grenada. That's where I was born. And I think one of your parents, Steve, is also from Grenada. And we were talking a little bit about that because first of all, we're from a very tiny island that most people don't even know about, you know, and just to meet someone else who knows that island and who knows some of the culture, right? And the charisma of being from a small island, I guess by being from a small town, I would say here in the US, was very unique for us to talk about. So saying that, Caribbean culture in general do not believe in therapy, right? We're from a place where you don't tell people your business. You keep your problems to yourself. Sometimes you might find someone you can talk to. Most times you really don't. You just kind of keep it to yourself and you work through it because that's what we do. And people are hurting, but we put up the mask that we wear every day, and people don't know that we're hurting. And we get through our day and we go home and we might self-medicate, get into, drugs, alcohol, whatever we need to self-soothe. And that's how we live. Hey, that that does it work? Not really, but it's covered up. So nobody really knows that it doesn't really work. So therapy, I know, is something that's really new to the islands because I have a lot of clients who are Caribbean background as well. So I know the culture and I know how hard it is for them to even come into that space. So we were talking about, we are both in this field and this career that is really not supported by our cultural upbringing. So my question to you, Steve, is, how do you feel about that? And has that changed anything for you when you made that decision to become a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, so that's such a big and important question because on one hand, yes, they don't accept mental health and they don't take it that seriously, or it's not a real thing. But then what does that mean for the clinician who endeavors to get into a field like this, right? It's almost like, what are you doing? I was thinking about having a conversation with my father the other day, and he said something like, Steve boy, you're real smart. And then he went into like, oh, you think you should be a lawyer or something like that. This is after knowing I've been a therapist for over 7 years or whatever the case may be. He's only now starting to get it. But so that plays a role. So you asked about me thinking about becoming a therapist. That's on one hand, it's like, all right, well, am I doing something important? I came from a total different career before becoming a therapist. And I'm like, all right, well, is it going to be held in the same kind of regard as what I was doing before? And so it's a big thing. It's a big thing. But I think it's getting better slowly with time. My mom is the Grenadian one, and she also happens to be a registered nurse. So she
Okay.
does like psychiatric casework, let's call it that. So she understands more, but my father, no.
Yes. I'm glad you said your mom is a nurse because that is the career for Caribbean women. Nurses and teachers, men are doctors and lawyers. And that's it. Anything else is like, I'm not sure about that. So your mom is definitely in the right place. Those psychiatric nurses, they work hard and they see a lot. Because I did my clinical work in an inpatient unit many
Mhm.
years ago. So they see a lot and they work hard. So I applaud her for that. She gets it. There is a space for this kind of work. And you're right, they are starting and moving in that direction where they are learning more about therapy and the benefits of it. So slow work in progress, but we hope over time that it will be something that is, appreciated and realize that it is something that is definitely necessary. One of my goals also is to break the stigma of mental health.
Mhm.
So people don't only come to therapy because they are depressed or anxious. People come to therapy just to get support sometimes. People come to
Ah,
therapy just to vent sometimes because they have no one else to vent to. So the space holds a lot of different roles for a lot of different people. It's no longer just about critical depression or critical anxiety. We all get a little anxious. We all get a little bit depressed. This is a great space to talk about that. It doesn't mean you're crazy. So even today in 2023, we're still trying to break that stigma.
mhm.
And I think we will. Only time will tell, right? Only time will tell. But so far,
This
so
is, this is helpful. This is very helpful because I want people to see. I don't know how much people will end up seeing the podcast, but I wish millions of people could see it because at the end of the day, this is what a therapy session could look like. We smiled, we laughed a little bit, we touched on some serious things, we getting robbed, and it can be just that. We're not bawling, tearing or whatever. That could happen, but I think people have this very Hollywood version of what therapy looks like, and they
good.
think it's with a white professional, then they're gonna come on a couch and then they're gonna leave in tears all the time, and then one day they can have this break. It doesn't have to be like that. So I just think we need to get more representation of just images of what therapy looks like.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in time, In time, absolutely. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how many people are gonna see this, but in time, over time, things sits on YouTube for years sometimes before someone actually sees it. But the one thing I know is that whoever this is for, they will get it in their time,
Right.
whatever that time is for them. They will get it in that time. Yeah, absolutely. What does self-care look like to you? Ask all my guests this question because I know again the work that we do and how challenging it can be. How do we take care of ourselves at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. And I came from a field where I didn't care about self-care at all. You know, I'd work, you know, 12 hours plus a day. And when I got into mental health, I'll be honest, like I brought some of that with me. So even some years ago, I was working 7 days a week, all bunch of hours, just crazy. But to answer the question, how I do it is first a self-awareness. So realizing when I'm becoming burned out. And that looks different for everybody. For me, I notice if I start getting a little more agitated or if I feel like I'm zoning out, I say, all right, you gotta check in. So first self-awareness. Then it's like, what do you do? So me, I exercise every day. We spoke about writing earlier. I still write at least 300 to 500 words every single day because that's my
Wow.
point of release. I spend time with my niece and my nephews every Friday. We got like a standing appointment. They live in
Oh,
California, but I get on the Zoom just like this and I do that. And then I just try to make space to do something creative, which is weird because if you asked me from before, my mind is very like logical, like, oh, it doesn't make any sense. Why would I draw something? But I try to get some kind of a creative outlet. So those are the things that kind of help me with self-care.
my gosh, that's amazing. That is all so amazing. That's great. And I know that you're busy because I know you do so much just besides your particular private practice. And you're making time for your nieces and your nephews. I mean, that's awesome. Who does that? Nobody I know. You do. That's awesome. That is awesome. I mean, you know, a long time ago, a friend of mine, and he came from an African culture, and it could have been just the way they speak in Africa. And he used to always say to me, "Are you taking time for yourself?" And I'm like, why would he say taking time, not making time?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
I don't know if he just said it because it was a language thing, but just the other day I said, wait a minute, that sounds exactly right. We have to take the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're always going to be busy. Who isn't busy 24 hours a day? There's never enough time in the day. But did I
Right.
take time to eat? Did I take time to exercise? Did I take time to do the things that I wanted to do today? We're
Yeah.
not going to get more time. It's all we have. If everyone has the same 24 hours every single day, what do you do with your time? And to your point about the burnout, I just see way too many clients right now who are burnt out. Way too many clients who are burnt out. And one of the things which we always have talked about in that space is that there is no work-life balance in America,
Yeah.
in the US. And people are burnt out and people are tired. People are not sleeping, they're not eating, they're working all day, every day. And then they come to see us.
Yeah.
They're stressed, they're burnt out, they don't know what else to do. And something simple as you said, just taking the time, they don't have time to take that. And it's like, it's a vicious cycle. What do you do in a
Right.
space like that? Because you have to take care. I can't stress it enough how important it is that we take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not good for anybody else if we're not good for ourselves. And it's one of those, it can seem, like you said before, this particular field that you didn't even do that. It didn't even seem like a concept until you realize, oh my gosh, I am burned out. I feel horrible. I'm stressed. I don't want to go to this job on, that's that Monday blues. I don't want to go to work. It's because we're not taking time to take care of ourselves. And I tell my clients all the time, listen, the reward for doing your work well is more work. It's more work. That's all it is. It's more work. And that's the one thing, Steve, that again, being that we both have that Caribbean root, I appreciate that. Because in the Caribbean, 9 to 5 or whatever that time is, and they're done for most
Yeah.
people. for the most of the individual, and they're done. They have time to hang out on a Friday after work and, chill. The weekends, it's family time. It's prioritized. And I don't find that here in the US. We're working way too much. We're always stressed out. We're always trying to make more money. You make more money, you don't even have time to spend it. So what's the point of making it? You know what I'm saying? We could drop that tomorrow and the money would sit there anyway. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you actually said that, how you saw it from before this field, and now that you're in this particular field, you see the difference that that does make in your life. And I'm sure your nieces and nephews appreciate you doing your Zoom call. You must be the cool uncle, like literally. You must be the cool uncle. I love that.
They criticize my YouTube channel. They say, I don't know if kids are like this. This is kind of boring. But I speak about a lot of clinical stuff and mental health. But yeah, but when you were talking, you made me think about something. Like
Okay.
as a therapist, I think one of the main things we do, there's so many, right? As far as space and the clinical stuff, diagnosing. But another part I think a good therapist does is help people reparent, like reparent themselves. So you said we're take care of yourself. It's like in America, no, you see what they're doing with like robots that that can do orders for you. And the thing with employees in America is that if they could suck every single time, they call it productivity, they will. So you have to you can't expect a boss to say like, all right, I see you've been up at 3 o'clock sending an email. Maybe why don't you take a check? Some will, but a lot will say, oh no, that's for productivity, revenue. So you have to be your own parent. Just like a parent, if they're watching their child staying up late, eating ice cream, say, all right, put the brakes on it, let's chill a little bit. You have to be that for yourself. And I think that's what a good therapist does to help you become that.
It's very important. Very well said. And a lot of us don't know how to be parents to ourselves. Yeah. We'll discipline our kids, but we don't discipline ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. Very important. Very important. Yes. As we're about to wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like to leave with us today, Steve? It's been such a great interview.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could do this for 24 hours. What I would leave for people is just not everybody has access to therapy or certain services. It could be that they're far away or they just don't have the money. I don't necessarily think everybody needs a therapist. I think get in the habit of just being more self-aware. What do I like? What do I dislike? All right, what's triggering me? That kind of stuff. I think if you could do that, whether it's through journaling or even recording yourself talking out loud, just have a mechanism for self-awareness. You don't always need a therapist. But if you do have the opportunity, I think therapy can be a beautiful thing. But other than that, this was a wonderful talk. I hope people will watch it and follow both of us. We got great information we're giving out.
Absolutely. Well said. Yes, not everyone needs to be in therapy. But the one thing I find that is people who haven't, I'm going to be very general here, people who haven't really been to therapy are not usually as self-aware on their own. So I think by saying finding ways to be self-aware, really digging deep within yourself, not just that you need therapy. And one of the most important thing is knowing how you come across to others. Ask a friend, when I say XYZ, how do I come across to you? Because sometimes we are in ourselves. We don't know how we come across to others, and it could be very nasty or bad or not, not good. And we wonder, well, why is everyone acting this way towards me? Well, what are you doing? And people may not be self-aware of those little things. If you have a friend who can be honest with you, ask those honest questions to yourself, because we have to know how we make other people feel. It's very important, because the one thing, I think someone quoted this a long time ago, people will always remember how you made them feel. So being self-aware, because we're out in the world every day, we're around people every day, but how do I come across to people? How do I come across in my home, to my children, to my spouse, to my partner? Very important questions. I think that's a really good point that you made, that just learning to be more self-aware. I would love, and I know you said everyone doesn't need, I said it too, doesn't really need therapy. But again, I think that it's just such a unique space that just helps people to just grow. If nothing else, to just grow. You know,
Mm.
what I love about some of my younger clients, my Gen Z clients, and they're in therapy. They're not particularly so stressed out per se, but they want to learn in this life transition space right now. What's next for me? I'm going through this and I don't even know why. I'm like, girl, you're 24. That's what happens. You know, they're so cute, right? And they want to know, okay, what's next? How do I manage this right now in my life? And I just love that they're open. And I do find that generation to be so much more open than my generation and even the one after me, right? They're just so much more open to just learning and just knowing more and being more self-aware because they're in a generation where there's so much going on that I feel like they have to be aware of what's happening around them.
Yep.
I do not want to end the conversation. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. This has been amazing. I don't want to end this conversation, but we do have to wrap up because we do have to get on with the rest of our day. Steve, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today, for giving us your expertise, giving us your insight and on your journey. And like I said, I definitely want to put in the description your group on gang-related children. I think that is so important and so vital and so needed. And if anyone out there who's looking for a Black male therapist, not particularly, but if you are, we got one right here for you. We found one for you. He's right here. And we'll definitely put Steve's information in the description, so anyone who wants to connect with him can do so. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening, for watching. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Take care and have an amazing day. Thank you again.